Welcome to the Fat Man's revisitation of the Twilight 2000 game system put out by Game Designers Workshop, or GDW. This is the U.S. Army Vehicle Guide, circa 1986, which is published date. Like to see a couple of things. One is we'll see references in here to the CivGov and the MilGov. Apparently in 97 or 98 there was some sort of issue with the United States government and the military engaged in a form of a light coup, and the civilian government is now fighting there's some sort of version of a civil war going on back in the States between these two government entities. So a few of these military units belong to or are under the command of the civilian government leadership and not the military. Another point is that there are some technical designs in here that, because when the people created this book, they were doing this in the late 70s, early 80s, and we're looking at potentially what the U.S. military would be operating in 20-odd years. So they were looking at what was already in the design pipeline, what the government and the military was already planning on, and what they were developing. So in the development stage, there was a number of designs that never came to fruition. The M1A2 is an example of that. The automated auto-load turret was half the size of a normal turret and didn't require as many crew, but for technical reasons and cost reasons, the government decided not to continue with that particular program. And then there's some other items in there that you won't see because they didn't exist at the time. So a lot of our more modern versions of the replacements for the Humvee, for example, the MRAP and other vehicles that are designed to deal with improvised explosive devices and other issues of the terror stage, didn't exist at that point because it was not something they were planning for. And so you won't see the post 2000 millennium additions that have come out in the last 20 years. Just is what it is, right? All right. And another thing to note, in the larger unit breakdowns, it shows listings of like how many tanks a division has. And if you think about the breakdown of what a U.S. military U.S. Army division consists of, it has several battalions of each holding 60 to 70 M1s or variants thereof. The fact that the 3rd Armored Division only holds 12 M1s under its command at the point shows you just how brutal the fighting had been in Europe and in other campaign theaters across the world up until this point in time. Is something, to make it interesting. So in this case, most of this information is not going to be pertinent to the player character level. We're talking about, an RPG. So this is back history for the game master, or perhaps a little bit of general knowledge to the player characters. And if the unit still has an active radio, potentially maybe they get occasional snippets from these forces and these various units around the world that are still in operation or still conducting what have you. Maybe occasionally they might run into some of the neighboring divisions that were part of the 11th Army that more or less had to retreat from the Russian counteroffensive in Poland, or other units. What this doesn't include is like the German or Allied forces that were around us. This is specifically United States Army, Marine Corps stuff. So we talk about where all these things are. I will read one or two to you. All right, so, the 3rd Armored Division, a pre-war regular division deployed at Frankfurt, Germany, under the command of the 5th Corps. Division crossed the inter-German border in 1296. First engaged against Soviet forces on 12/11/96. 3rd Armored Division participated in every major offensive undertaken by the U.S. forces in Central European theater. Subordinate to the 5th Corps, located in Central Germany, estimated manpower of 5,000, and it contains 30 M1s, 2 M1A1s, 13 M1A2s, and 9 LAV-75s. Where we'll go over here to this is what it's supposed to have, and what they actually have not always the same. Here's the 1st Marine Division, a pre-war regular division stationed at Camp Pendleton, California. Division began moving to Saudi Arabia in March of '97. In June, conducted a successful amphibious assault against Bandar Abbas in Iran. By summer, the division had driven north and captured the airfield complex at Izar, but was heavily engaged by Soviet mechanized forces from the Turkestan military district in Afghanistan. The division was able to repulse all attacks on its position. When on 8/1/97, the last supply road from Bandar Abbas to Izar was cut, the division was forced to retire. The division successfully fought its way out of the encirclement and joined the main body of the 1st Amphibious Corps north of Bandar Abbas on 9/17/97. The division remained at the Bandar Abbas area throughout the remainder of '97. 98th Division participated in the clearing operations of the Bashir-Siris-Bandar Abbas Triangle, and in 1999 undertook a number of search and destroy operations against armed bandits. In June of 2000, the division was withdrawn from Bandar Abbas and conducted a successful amphibious assault against Shah Bahar. Subordinate to the 1st U.S. Amphibious Corps, current location Iran, manpower 3,000, 6 M1 tanks. All right. Then we get into organization. This is the organizational chart of what ideally a unit would consist of. So, for example, a tank battalion would include 4 tank companies, each with 14 tanks. So, seeing an armored division with only 11 tanks left, you kind of go, But this gives you an idea of what you could ideally have if you run into a unit of this nature. What it has and what it has for surviving is another thing. Then we get into this section here where we're dealing with color versions of various combat vehicles, just for personal references. This is the A2, the M1A2 version. You can see the smaller turret, slightly elevated. This design did not, I think it made field tests, but it was never put into mass production. This is a Cadillac Gauge. It was designed to be a medium tank by a different company from the standard ones that build tanks for the U.S. military. This one was not adopted by the modern military, although it was projected that it might be for its unique potential role for forces and stuff. It was manufactured in limited numbers and sold to European allies and stuff, to my knowledge. That may have turned out to be BS, but you never know. But this is one of those that does not exist in the modern military. A lot of our soft-skin vehicles, a lot of these older styles, the M60 tanks, these M113s, a lot of these have been phased out. Even the National Guard units don't operate them anymore because they're antiques by today's standards. These would have been old by their standards of the 80s, but they were still functional. And then we got the equipment descriptions, more detailed information on those individual vehicles and so forth, stats on them. And then this here was a history bio of the individual vehicles. So this particular one, the LAV-25, which was shown here, this particular one, the LAV-75, the 260 Infantry, 9th Infantry Division, talks about where it originally came from. Vehicle is heavily weathered, still shows its lift stencils, front, rear, left range vehicles, serial number is probably still present, well obscured by the canvas banks on from the side, blah, blah, so on and so forth. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. Pretty sure that was the only LAV. Yeah, I must be looking at the wrong one. Anyway, more detailed information on some of these, how these things develop personalities and they get adapted and modified, paint schemes change. We got some rules on vehicle modeling and scale conversions, customizing. One of the things that always interested me in some of these games, this style of game, when I first picked it up, I was still big into tabletop wargaming, and the possibility that this game could be adapted to use in a tabletop wargame appealed to me. This was one of those things that caught my eye. Yeah, it's nice to have this sort of option available. Anyway, it's a good system. Nice game addition. Like the weapons handbook, this one here had additional uses. Now, I may not be able to play the Twilight 2000, the game itself. This particular supplement, as well as its counterparts, the Soviet Union version, and the handbook, the weapons handbooks, I saw some use in other game systems as a reference material. Things like my Top Secret game, for Top Secret. These were nice to be able to pull up some of this stuff of this nature, because it gave me some additional working material that I didn't have to go and find the hard way, because at the time we didn't have the internet, so you didn't just go Google something. There you have it, U.S. Military Guide.